All right, very good. Folks, please stand with us and join in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Heavenly Father, bless this assemblage. Grant us the wisdom to make our every decision fair-minded and in the best interest for all its residents. Thank you. Please be seated. Okay, Hope, if you could call the roll and bring this meeting to order.
The meeting for August 19th, 2014 is called to order. Collins? Here. Nardi?
Here.
Nioras?
Here.
Villanova?
Here.
Carpet.
Excused. Okay, and we'll stick with our agenda tonight. Do we have a presentation from the Energize New York program? Mr. Arcaro, if you'd be so kind to give us an intro.
Thank you, Deputy Supervisor. Just a few sentences to kind of introduce tonight's speaker and presentation. I just want to highlight what I think you're going to be hearing, because I heard it and I think it could be very helpful to our town. What I think you're first going to hear about, you'll see some of the written material in your packet, and there'll be a PowerPoint. You're going to hear discussion about a program newly commissioned by New York State to help commercial property owners finance energy improvements of their property. Just commercial property owners, with the delightful rates of 3.75 to 6.75. You'll see a kind of an interesting facet of the program that while we might think of a borrower going directly to a bank for this kind of funding, the state has set up a special local development corporation, and our speaker, Mark, will be talking about that. When he finishes, you'll probably get the idea that there are three things that, as a town, if we felt that we wanted to participate in the program, we'll need to do. One is to pass a local law, to enter into an agreement with EIC, the Energy Improvement Corporation, and thirdly is to request participation in the program. What I think you'll hear if our town attorney Paul Noto was here is that the local law and the agreement require a public hearing. So that if you're so inclined at the end, I think we would certainly encourage you to at least, without being committal on whether it is something to vote for or against, but at least to have the public hearing at the next council meeting. I think you'll also hear another feature of this program which is unique to Westchester. Namely, the county has the availability to issue bonds, not for commercial property owners, but for affordable housing projects and for nonprofits. These loans would...
That's separate. That's
right,
separate to itself.
Right, absolutely. Separate to itself, those loans would be at 3% and 4%. And there would be an agreement that we would enter into with the county. Something separate, should we also want to do that. So I think you'll be hearing information about the program, information about if we want to proceed, what we would have to do, and then, as I say, if Paul were here, he'd say we'd have to schedule that public hearing, which we hope you might feel comfortable in doing for the next council meeting. So it's my pleasure to ask Mark to come forward from the Energy Improvement Corporation, a wonderful new corporation in our state, local development corporation. Mark, if I could ask you to come forward, and I'll help with the
that'd be great.
PowerPoint.
Good evening.
That's okay. Let's see how this works.
So I'm Mark Thielking. I'm the chairman of the board of the Energy Improvement Corporation, also the acting executive director of the program. And I'm here to talk about the Energize New York Finance program, which is the key program that we were just discussing. I'd like to give a little background before I kick into the major details. And so if you flip forward to the slides, you actually have the presentation in front of you, I think. The energy situation in New York State, if you could flip forward to the next slide, is pretty significant from the standpoint of what our residents are spending every single year on energy. And you can see by the data, it's pretty shocking. That said, there's a lot of good stuff happening because we spend money on energy. But what's probably the most important statistic on that slide is that about $10 billion a year is wasted of the $64 billion we spend on energy from really simple fixes like changing light bulbs, sealing up your home or business for air leaks, elements like changing your mechanical systems to be more efficient. All that translates into a huge number of wasted dollars on the money that we do spend on energy.
Is this for commercial or commercial and residential?
Commercial and residential is the $10.5 billion.
Do you have a breakdown on the commercial?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. It's a statistic from the New York State Energy Plan. They don't break it out. And in fact, the $35 billion number is in the building sector. The $10.5 billion is also in the building sector. So it's a significant number. And here in Westchester County, that number is about $300 million. So if you flip to the next slide, the problem, because one would think that commercial building owners would want to address this, it's a huge waste. The problem is that most commercial building owners either don't know how to get started, or they need advice when they get stuck in the process, and fundamentally they need access to capital. And this is the situation that we've researched over the last 3 years in starting this program in northern Westchester, and now that the state has endorsed this and funded us, we're now spreading it across the rest of the state. So if you flip to the next page, the solution is pretty self-evident. You need to provide low-cost, long-term financing. You also need to support property owners through the process, and that's what the Energize program does. If you go to the next slide, just to introduce us, we're a not-for-profit local development corporation. LDCs, as you know, are specifically designed and created to provide a public benefit in behalf of a local municipality. That's what LDCs do. We're designed to be, again, not-for-profit and really mission-focused. We have 4 programs, and that's Energize New York Commercial, which is the marketing outreach to commercial building owners. We have Energize New York Finance, which is the finance program which we're talking about tonight. Energize New York Residential, which specifically focuses on northern Westchester and the residential space. And Solarize Westchester, which is launching on September 4th at Pace University. So we're here to speak about Energize New York Finance. If you go to the next slide. The Energize New York Finance program uses a unique form of financing called property-assessed clean energy financing. It's a state-authorized process. 39 states now have passed similar laws since New York passed theirs in 2009, allowing municipalities to provide financing, in essence providing this missing link to scaling the demand for energy efficiency and renewable energy projects. The fundamental components are that the repayments of the financing is collected via the municipal tax bill, and that it has a senior lien status relative to all other claims, with the exception of the town or villages or cities' claims on the property. So it's pari passu with the city or the town's claims, but it's senior to all other debt, which allows for really, really low-cost capital and a lot of it to provide channeled capital to these projects. If you go to the next slide. Eligible building types are essentially any building that is commercially owned. It could be a not-for-profit, it could be a for-profit, and these are the very typical types of properties that we're seeing in our pipeline currently. A lot of healthcare, a lot of industrial, a lot of multifamily, and quite a bit of office. If you go to the next slide, the types of upgrades can scale, again, all the way across the efficiency space, lighting, insulation, windows, and new controls, as well as renewable energy. About 20% of our pipeline currently is solar. The rest is efficiency. If you go to the next slide, the core benefits of the PACE model is that it can cover 100% of the cost of the project. It has very long terms. And if you'll know, probably, I think you are going through some considerations of energy upgrades for your building stock. You know that some of these investments pay off over a long period of time, and most commercial building owners can't access the capital markets for longer than 7 years. So we provide much longer terms, thus allowing for positive cash flow on these improvements and allowing much deeper upgrades. The other component to this is that we're a mission-focused enterprise. We need to be aligned with the community goals. So a lot of the reasons why these communities are joining EIC is because not only does it help the building stock and lower energy costs, but we keep a lot of those dollars now, the $10 billion local. It's not being sent to Con Ed anymore or to Saudi Arabia. And also we're improving our building stocks, which attracts new employers, new types of opportunities for those building owners. So if you go to the next slide, We've developed a very robust financing criteria because none of us want to see property owners over their skis, so to speak, on this program. So these criteria are designed to really allow the building owner to see the savings pay for the tax charge. In fact, that's a requirement in our underwriting standards, that the energy savings, whether it's from a renewable project or a energy savings project, they have to be greater than the annual tax charge by 1%. In addition to that, the existing loan to value on the property cannot be greater than 80%. We cannot finance more than 10% of the appraised value of the property. And the other components are all self-explanatory for the most part. The other component, though, I want to bring up is that NYSERDA, which is the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority, they run programs for pretty much every building stock in our communities. And they will have a hand in evaluating these projects. In fact, they're essentially saying that these projects ensure high quality, and they also ensure that the savings are going to be realized. Again, it's an important component of the program. It's actually mandated in the law, the state law, that NYSERDA has a say in these projects. If you go to the next slide, one of the major components...
I'm sorry, Mark, I just got one quick question
Sure.
for you. On this here, it says recent property appraisal required. So obviously there's going to be some kind of an investment by the property owner. Right?
Yeah.
What's the average investment of a property owner that's going into this project?
Well, our underwriting standards now say that if the property has a desktop appraisal, meaning the appraisal on the tax record, that shows a 70% or lower loan to value, that's sufficient, because we know the tax records are always really conservative. If it shows higher than 70% and up to 80%, then we would require that appraisal, and that investment is at least $2,000. It's a significant investment. Well, it depends on the building. If it's a residential building that's probably 6 units or less, it could be as low as $500. But if it's a more than 10-unit multifamily, you're talking in the thousands. We've seen appraisals go up. I mean, we have some very, very large projects in our pipeline that are, $10,000 appraisals.
Mark, on that point then, if I'm a property owner and I have some upfront costs like an appraisal, is that later covered? Should the loan be granted, awarded?
They can finance the appraisal cost, yes.
The upfront cost could be included in the loan?
Yes. Yep, including the energy audit. So the energy assessment is the first step for any property because they have to show that they're going to have savings. That can also be financed.
All the soft costs, if you will.
Correct. Yep.
Thank you, Mark.
So on the next slide, one of the key elements of the program is that the member municipality not only collects the annual tax bill charge, but also ensures that that tax bill charge is paid to our creditors regardless of whether the municipality is paid themselves. And so and this is again very common for any in behalf of enterprise in the state, if it's a school district, if it's a water authority, if it's whatever the entity is that's providing a public benefit, the tax collecting authority that has lien authority makes those enterprises whole. It's the same situation with us. So what we've done is we've done a case study on the City of Rye's tax delinquency rate, which is about 1.5%.
So you're working in the City of Rye now?
Not the City of Rye, no. We use the city because we don't have rates for the town. I don't think we've issued any debt. So we couldn't find any rates, but we use this as a proxy for the town. And again, if it's higher or lower, we can adjust this analysis. But if we did $5 million in projects in the town of Rye, again, we're using the city as a proxy, that would mean that there's $655,000 of annual tax bill payments that are coming into the town, which then gets distributed back to our creditors. And that's assuming a 10-year financing at 5.25%. If the 1.5% delinquency rate applies, which we acknowledge that 1.5% in the city, which again is a proxy, represents both residential and commercial. And most of the time when we're talking about commercial property delinquencies, it's lower. But say it's 1.5%, the amount of money out of the $655,000 that would be collected that would be missing from that annual tax bill would be about $9,800. That's what would be missing from the bill. If that is continued to be missing, you would have your 3-year in-rem process to collect and enforce on that delinquent tax bill charge, which over time, again, you would collect penalties and interest. By the end of that 3-year period, you would be made whole, and and we would have been already paid, but that allows you to recover your costs. If you go to the next slide, the municipal role in this, besides collecting and enforcing the tax, is what we discussed earlier, is that the local law has to be passed establishing the program, which just re-engages what the state law provided in 2009. We also have to sign a municipal agreement that codifies this tax payment process between EIC and the town, and you need to formally request EIC membership to the EIC board. If you go to the next slide, in the 14 municipalities that we've added, the main role for the municipality, again, is to add that PACE, or that tax collection charge, to the annual tax bill. It's recorded on the land record, and we've got templates for towns to be able to do that. We've worked with 3 towns here in Westchester to create a templated process. The municipality collects the annual PACE tax charge from property owners, and the municipality then remits that to our trustee, which then remits it back to our creditors. As an added benefit of membership, we protect the municipality from a permanent loss on that collection process. So if we did have that scenario where a property owner did not pay, and you went through an in-rem process, you sold it in a tax sale, and the property was worth less than what you had reimbursed us over that 3-year period, we have a municipal loss reserve fund set up by our financial advisor that would reimburse the town for any loss. So there's no possibility of a loss from a in-rem process thanks to this reserve fund. It's currently funded at over $1 million. So if you go to the next slide, again, of the 14 municipalities, they pretty much all concur. There's no variable cost as a member of EIC. There certainly is a time cost for the tax receiver and the assessor to add the tax charge, but most, subject to the tax programming software, which may need to be, I don't know what system you have, but some systems are more easier than others. Adding a line generally seems to be not much of a big deal, but it is doing it, and the first time is always going to be more time for the tax receiver and the assessor. But once the process is understood, it seems to be really not a major factor for the municipalities that have joined. If you go to the next slide real quick, I wanted to get through this part of the presentation. This is what's the most interesting aspect of providing capital to our property owners, and that is we've leveraged this state law to provide very, very low-cost capital, considering the length of term, to these commercial building owners within our municipal boundaries. And again, Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and First Niagara are our partner banks. We went through an RFP process which ended in May, and Bank of America was the winner at this point, and they've committed to $75 million of capital for the first $75 million worth of projects. I don't know why the boxes are not showing up, but on your yeah, so I think on your sheets you see the flow.
Bank trustee. The quick question: how much have you loaned out already?
We haven't closed the financing yet, but we have $32 million in projects underway, of which again the breakdown is pretty much well distributed across the county and in Orange County as well. Orange County is a member.
Okay.
That half of the capital that's available here?
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're probably going to have to go to another RP if we go through that. So the next slide just shows our... oh, they're there.
Yeah.
It's weird. So if you go to the next slide, this shows our current membership. And Cortland just last week passed their local law. My colleague, Alyssa Roth, who should have been here tonight, is up in Ulster. They're setting their public hearing tonight. Again, many of these municipalities have already been through this process, and it's pretty straightforward going through the local law and the municipal agreement and all that process. If you go to the next slide, this is our prospective member list. These are all counties and cities that are working their way through the program right now, again, setting the local law, public hearing, and then signing the intermunicipal agreement.
How long does it take to go through the process to become a member?
Well, I think given the efficiency that the town has here, meetings very quickly, if you want to make it quickly, it's usually if you set the public hearing, it's I think a 30-day, minimum 30-day period to allow for comment. And then after that 30-day period, it's up to the town board to close the hearing and vote on the local law.
So there's no delay. It happens within when we give you the letter and sign the agreement. It happens that fast.
And then our board has to vote on it. So our board meets monthly. So it would be probably the earliest you would see it. It would be the early October meeting. We meet the first Thursdays of the month. So
Okay.
maybe early October.
Thank you.
So just moving back to the other, if you go to the next slide, the other element that is missing from seeing real scale demand for clean energy upgrades in our communities, and that is providing some level of support for the commercial building owner to help them move forward with a project. And our Energize commercial program does this. We have launch events. We support the town in its marketing efforts. We also support the property owner in its efforts to sync up with NYSERDA's programs, find the largest incentives, and also to allow them to find a good project for themselves. And that is a key component of the program that should not be overlooked. It's not just about financing. It really is about getting projects moving along in the path of getting an upgrade. So if you flip to the next slide, the reasons why so many municipalities are joining, again, it's pretty obvious. Savings on the energy bills is huge, but that money does stay in the local community. That does get reinvested in the local economy. There are a lot of jobs that are created. The job numbers from just the $30 million in projects that we're talking about here are going to be over 400 jobs, and that's just in the Westchester County region. If you go to the next slide, there is a huge environmental benefit. Obviously, every time you use some level of energy, there is an environmental degradation component to this. But as we reduce that energy waste from our use of energy, it has huge economic and environmental benefits. And that, again, aligns with most municipalities' goals, which is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reduce particulate emissions, and obviously support a healthier and livable community. So if you go to the next slide, we talked earlier about the Westchester project, which is the Westchester County program that is offering even lower interest rates, and these are for affordable and for not-for-profit housing buildings. And it's the actual same mechanism that we use for the regular Energize NY Finance program. It's just that the county has this unused bonding authority that they've transferred to us that allows us to bring down the rates to between 3% and 4%, depending on the term. And the county has decided to specifically target affordable and not-for-profits. And it's garnered a lot of interest. We have some very large projects in our $30 million pipeline that are using this. If you go to the next slide, the fundamental problem with this program is that they want to wrap it up by the end of the year. So one of the elements that is urgent is to get as many municipalities in the county to join soon, so that this $4 to $8 million is used in a dispersed way. We don't want some of the bigger communities in our county to have an overweighted amount. So there are projects, I believe, in Portchester that could definitely take advantage of this, certainly. And I think that's why there's interest in seeing this program get activated quickly in the town.
This funding goes through Bank of America as well?
Correct.
And okay, so quite simply, you're not only representing Energize New York, you're also representing this Westchester County project?
Well, we're partnered with the county. The county's transferred that authority to us. But in the legalese around this, the county, we don't represent the county, we represent the members. And the members have to agree with the county through that separate IMA that I have 3 projects in the town of Rye. We want this funding. That IMA then represents that. The county approves that. You then come back to us and say, all right, here are the 3 projects. We're going to fund these using our program. So we do all the work, but you actually have to have the legal agreement with the county.
The Westchester projects are not part of the $75 million?
It is. So Bank of America is supplying the same capital. It's just that it's through the QECB bonding authority, not through our own bonding authority. It's a separate line, in essence, that we have with Bank of America.
Understood. Okay, but it's all
the same.
All the same.
It's great.
Okay.
It's a really good situation. So just wrapping up, again, the reasons why we're seeing so much interest across the state is that, again, we're seeing more projects come in, deeper upgrades, a higher level of attractiveness to employers. Orange County just launched a major campaign with their Chamber of Commerce and touting the program. The county executive launched the program in front of the 300-member county, the Orange County Chamber. And again, it's all about creating whatever works for the town. In this case, Orange County was about creating economic development. In the town, we're looking to, again, hit any buttons that you need to work with to make this program a success. And most of the towns in Westchester want to just see lower energy costs for their residents. So again, just last page is if you want to move forward, it's to review the local law legislation and the municipal agreement. The condition on the local law and the municipal agreement is that it has to be as is, because we are aggregating financings across all municipal members. And so the local law as it's written and the municipal agreement as it's written is the same agreement that's being passed across the state. And that allows us to leverage this capital source in the most effective way. The next step is to, again, pass the legislation, sign the agreement, and send a letter to our board to request membership. And then we get to work launching the program.
Okay.
And that's pretty much it.
Okay, so sit tight. And so first we'll start. Any questions from...
Shall we shut it down?
Yeah.
You may want to keep it up for just maybe reference back to some slides.
Okay.
Thank you.
Our town assessor, Ms. Canary, do you have any questions?
Well, we were supposed to have a conference call yesterday, which got postponed, so I'm going to hold my questions until that specific conference call, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not quite sure how the assessments get affected, if you want to touch on
Oh,
that.
how the assessments? It's a good question. So these are commercial properties, and the way you assess commercial properties is probably based on the income of those properties, depending on how much energy they're saving and how the offset with paying off the financing is structured. If it's really at the margin, meaning that they're only gaining a little bit of energy savings relative to how much they're paying in extra tax, it may not be any reassessment. But if it turns out that they have a huge amount of savings or a huge amount of energy production that brings down their energy costs, in theory you could reassess the building, but that's
Is
not...
that what you're finding in any of the other communities that you're in? That seems
Well, we haven't financed any projects yet, but the question always comes up, and the assessor always asks the question, how do I reappraise the property? And I would personally not like to go out and saying that because you're saving all this money on energy, you're going to get a reassessed tax bill. But it is an open question as to how you would reassess it.
If Andy could also say that it can go, the assessment of the property can be higher because it may become a more desirable property, thus more valuable, and drive the assessment higher.
Again, I wouldn't want to...
hard to micromanage that. That would be
Yeah.
the only thing, since we're assessing
most of these...
general.
most of these improvements, some of these improvements require a building permit. Not every one. So that may trigger something there. Yep. Certainly if they're putting solar on the roof, that will require a building permit. But if they're just doing basic insulation work, basic air sealing work, it may not. But that usually is the highest impact, frankly, from a dollar cost perspective. So you may see a lot of savings from that, but you may not see a building permit. So it's kind of up to you how you want to play that. As for the tax bill charge itself, it's a separate line on the tax bill. So it's not like this is not a ad valorem tax. This is a tax bill charge. It's a fees for service tax, essentially. So it's as if someone, I don't know how unpaid water bills work in the town, but if it's unpaid water bill is not paid. Okay. One other
Sidewalk assessment.
is sidewalk assessment. So they choose to get their sidewalk improved.
Yeah.
Yep, it's similar to that. So it would not be it's not an ad valorem tax. It's a tax bill charge, and it goes away, and depending on the term of the financing. If it's 10 years, it's gone.
Would the tax receiver, and that's Mr. Mecca, would the tax receiver need to ultimately have a new tax bill created to
No.
accommodate this?
No, it's well, again, it's up to the town, but all the other towns are just adding a line to the existing town portion of the bill, and it's just, they call it the energy improvement tax. You can call it anything you want. Most towns are putting a specific number attached to it that delineates the term of the bill. So if it's a 5-year financing, it would be energy improvement tax charge 2,000.
This has all been approved by Westchester County because we use their bill. The town tax is added to the Westchester County bill.
It definitely, I mean,
Approved by them.
it's a program that they've vetted extensively. So it's a separate line. It's not a separate bill. And then the other thing I should mention is that annually, at least annually, we submit a report to the town explaining which properties have been benefited, what's the term of the financing, what's the tax lot ID number, and really anything you want on that annual report to help your job to get the tax bill charge on the tax bill. We submit that to you at least annually. You can do it sooner than that or not as frequent, but it should be at least annually. And then the other component is that we make sure that every financing that is current is on that, and any financing that is being satisfied that year is also on that. So you're getting a full report of every financing from us so that you can keep track of it. Oh, yes.
Sure. Out of your current members, who was amongst the first municipalities to sign on? So who have you been working with the longest?
Bedford, Ossining, Greenberg, and Peekskill. Those are the first ones. Croton was an early signer on as well. White Plains signed on about 9 months ago. New Rochelle was about 6 months ago, and Cortland was a week ago.
And how many of these municipalities or towns are actually collecting this tax through their tax bill today?
Okay, we haven't closed the financing yet, so
none. Right.
not yet, but we've gone through the process with each tax receiver. The most recent conversation we've had is with the town of Ossining, because we have a lot of projects in the town. We also ran through it with the City of White Plains. We have a lot of projects in the City of White Plains that are probably going to be closing in the next weeks. So those are the most recent conversations we've had.
And then the payments for taxes come on irregular basis. You know, in the case of the town tax, it's once a year.
Yep.
So how are the payments, arranged such that typically most loans are paid on a monthly basis?
This would be an annual payment.
It would be an annual payment.
Yep. It would be just consistent with how the town collects its town portion of the bill. We're just going to be right there with it. Mm-hmm. So all of our analysis is done assuming an annual payment.
And I'm just curious because I used to be in the mortgage industry, and so it looks like Energize New York and this program is utilizing the town for two purposes. One, for loan servicing, if you will, and second, as a guarantee or grantor or guarantor, if you will, of
We
the
call it
loan
insurance. Insurance, yes.
Yeah, and typically in that situation, the loan servicer, if you will, would get some part of the interest rate and or some compensation on behalf of that loan. And typically they wouldn't guarantee the loan. I mean, that's asking an awful lot of a municipality to guarantee the loan.
Well, you're really not guaranteeing...
And given that if you were to guarantee the loan, you might as well go to, and it's being based upon the taxpayers of the town of Rye, you could basically view us as a U.S. government or a government institution, and the interest rate, I would imagine, would be lower because you got a guaranteed loan.
Well, there's three questions in there, so...
There are three. They're all interrelated.
Yeah, I mean, they're all really good points. The New York State passed this law to authorize municipalities to provide this financing